Welcome, everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you. And hey, you in the back, thank you too. Tonight, we're here with Wolf.
Whoa! Wolf here.
And we're covering NXT's takeover. 2-night event.
One on Wednesday at 8 o'clock on the USA Network. And part 2, which is going to steal the show on Peacock at 8 o'clock there. I'm excited for this. It's an opportunity for them to steal the show. How about you, Versace?
I think it's going to be great. I mean, what are they calling it this year?
Stand and deliver.
I think that's exactly what NXT is going to do. I think they're going to stand and deliver. I mean, yes, night 2 looks a lot more better than night 1, but you know what? NXT is funny like that. I've never seen a bad takeover ever in my whole history of watching NXT, and that's been since the beginning. No matter what's going on in the main roster, even no matter what's going on in NXT during the week, their takeovers always deliver.
They always deliver so much that it puts a little pressure on the main roster. I hope it's the case this year, because this Mania, I feel like, is going to boom or bust. But the NXT, especially night 2, I'm confident there'll be a lot of 4-star matches, at least 5 stars.
Oh, at least. I mean, you got a lot of top talent in this, and NXT has thrived over the last year as far as, building their characters up even more. You got the champion Finn Balor. You have the return of Karrion Kross. You got all these guys,
And you got the explosion breakup of Undisputed Era.
All these things that are just coming to head right now, and this is the place to have it happen at TakeOver.
Very true, and I'll read the cards first. So starting off with night 1, I think the beginning match will be the Gauntlet Elimination Chamber match to determine the number 1 contender to face Johnny Gargano for the NXT North American Championship on night 2 to most likely kick off night 2. And then you'll have new NXT Tag Team Champions, guaranteed. You'll have MSK of Wesley and Nash Carter versus the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson. And you got Legado del Fantasma of Raul Mendoza and Joaquin Wilde. And then for the main event of night 1, you'll have the singles match for the NXT Women's Championship with Leo Shirai defending against the next big thing in the women's division, very tall Raquel Gonzalez, with Dakota Kai as on her side.
Wow, you got a pretty good stacked lineup. I mean, we'll go through the matches a little bit more in detail, but I mean, just hearing that's a pretty good caliber NXT. And that's only half of the card, really.
That is very true, Versace.
Who do we got for the entrance in the Gauntlet? Do we know yet? Did they give us names?
They gave us the Bruiserweight, Pete Dunne, Austin Theory, if he comes through his mental evaluation. You got James Drake, I believe. You also got I said Austin Theory, but you'll have Gargano defended against a lot of up-and-rising stars.
So it's really a showcase match to showcase the talent and see who's going to go. But, honestly, Pete Dunne can take it. He's well overdue for that title.
Absolutely, especially when most of the England guys are finally being worked out a deal to come through this country, especially how strict everything is in England. NXT UK is just getting started, but a lot of them had to get reps down in Full Sail in Florida. What you think about that?
I mean, yeah, it's a little bit sad. NXT, before the pandemic, honestly, one of my favorite shows was NXT UK. They had some of the greatest matchups. It was a little bit different talent-wise. It wasn't the American talent. You got to see people like Walter.
Mustache Mountain,
Pete Dunne just destroying the division. lighten it up, and it kind of, like you said, all came to a halt with all the travel restrictions and them not being able to get into the country and so forth. Now it's starting to open up. I think it's going to bring back some of NXT's, what made NXT great. A lot of it had to do with, all these guys and, the diversity that NXT has shown over the years through the different countries that the wrestlers represent from.
They were going to launch an NXT Japan in India, too, before this all happened with the pandemic.
And I had no doubt they will. It will probably continue as I can see the trend going with WWE in India. There's definitely a trend going. We had that India pay-per-view not too while ago. Yes, it took place here, but if it wasn't a pandemic, it would have been in India. Now we got the great Khali being entered into the Hall of Fame. I would say within the next year to 2 years, when restrictions are lifted, instead of a Saudi show, we're going to see an India show.
That'd be fine with me. This show they had a few months ago really killed it with the showcase of Indian talent.
They did. They really did. And I can only imagine how big of a pop these guys would have gotten in their own home country.
So the rest of the names in this Battle Royal that I haven't mentioned are Jake Atlas, Isaiah Swerve Scott, Leon Ruff, Dexter Loomis, Tyler Rust, Kashada, Cameron Grimes, and Roderick Strong, and this newly anticipating signing of LA Knight.
Wow, so they put Roderick Strong in there too, which is another interesting match that could happen. He's well overdue as well with that breakup with Undisputed Era.
He's been formerly NXT North American champion before.
So he's another potential winner, but you got Austin Theory, who's also another contender for that title, and the new guy that they're all talking about. There's the possibilities for that match are endless of who's going to walk out. You got some people that have been veterans in the game, and you got some definitely up-and-coming bright stars.
I honestly think, though, go with this new guy, LA Knight, who was formerly known as Eli Drake in the Indies and Ring of Honor.
Eli Drake?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I've watched some of his matches on the scene, and they might go with him, and that would be a fine choice by me.
He was really good in Impact Wrestling, where he's a former one-time Impact World Champion, King of a Mountain Champion, and World Tag Team Champion with, believe it or not, Big Pump himself, Scott Steiner.
Wow, so he has quite the resume on him. Definitely someone that's going to bring some thunder to NXT, and maybe he will be something that will be good to win that belt. Eventually, let's face it, Gargano's not going to stay on this NXT forever. He has to move on.
Well, who knows, because this is an opportunity to them because of how popular takeovers are. Gargano along with Ciampa and Adam Cole are the three people you think of when you think of the name NXT TakeOver. They could be like the Shawn Michaels, Mr. Takeover, the Undertaker of takeovers. And I think that Johnny Gargano's not going to have a bad match, whoever wins this Battle Royal gauntlet.
No way at all. Gargano's never put on a bad match at a takeover, neither has Ciampa. Those two have fought, and even themselves, in some of the greatest matchups. Look at Chicago. Look at some of these other takeovers that we had. Brooklyn. You had all these guys, killing. Adam Cole is Mr. NXT, that is for sure. But like I said, you're making way for new Italian talent. Karrion Kross, he was champion. He got injured. It's time for him to get what's rightfully his.
And we will talk more about Karrion Kross later on the show.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to go out of a limb. I know you think LA Knight won. I think the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne's going to pull this one out, because he's due for a big-time feud. And a Bruiserweight versus a Johnny Wrestling is going to steal the show to kick off Night 2. Because I think they want Night 2 to separate from Night 1. They don't want to have too bad of a card on Night 1, since you're obviously going up against AEW on that Wednesday show.
Yeah, of course. But Night 2, they're going up against nothing. They can just throw everything they got on that second night.
It's an opportunity for Laughs fans to get used to Peacock.
Exactly. And the other thing is, let's not shit each other here. A lot of AEW fans will probably be tuning in Night 2.
I usually watch AEW on Wednesday nights for Sachi, but I'm probably going to go back and forth on this one or watch both.
And if you're a wrestling fan, though, you definitely, like I said, you might watch AEW Wednesday, like I would probably do. But then Thursday, you're gonna watch the rerun of night 1, and you're gonna probably definitely most watch night 2, whether you watched AEW the night before or not. It's a big week for wrestling, and I think that's what they're trying to do. I like that they kind of separated it, that you do get that one night where Thursday nights. I mean, unfortunately, the only thing they're going up against is a whole lot of indie wrestling.
Very true, especially in the New England area for Denver, Colorado, and Beyond Wrestling, which we will be attending.
We will be attending their show. I believe the Signature Series ends, though, this Thursday. I believe it's their last episode.
I don't know how that's going to work. Why would you air the season finale of something if people are going to be on their way to Worcester?
It must be a tape show. It has to be taped. It must not be live, I'm guessing. I'm guessing he taped that all in one day.
Probably.
But, because those tickets weren't sold. There was no tickets for the last episode of the Signature Series. But, you also, like I said, you got NCW, you got Chaotic, you got Limitless. You got all these guys running different shows throughout the week. Some on Wednesdays, some on Thursdays. But, they're all on streaming services. I think all eyes will be on NXT for Thursday night, and it'll be great. It's not as great as a Saturday takeover pay-per-view, which I'm a huge fan of.
But it's better than those Sunday pay-per-views.
It's better than a Sunday pay-per-view. I can't stand that, and it's better than just a one-day Wednesday night.
Very true. So we're going to move on to the triple threat tag team match for the newly vacant NXT Tag Team Championship with MSK versus the Grizzled Young Veterans versus Legado del Fantasma. I think the Grizzled Young Veterans are going to take it because they've been looking really good in the ring, really vicious.
Who was the tag team champions before?
Oney Larkin and Danny Burch.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, you got some, up and comers here. I think you're right. I think they're going to give it to the Grizzly Veterans. I think they're the fan favorite in this. MSK is good, but they're not going to, I don't think they're going to take the show that night.
But I do think it's an opportunity for them to get through to new talent to step up for NXT because Undisputed Era is broken up. And
it is, and with them breaking up, it's going to be kind of a transition period for NXT. We're going to see new stars. We're going to see new tags. We're going to see new single stars. We're going to see probably even new factions being created. We haven't seen a new faction in NXT in a very long time. Absolutely,
and it's not a ladder match, but I think they're all going to steal the show. But in triple threat tag matches, you can tag whoever. It doesn't have to be a partner, right?
It doesn't. No, it usually doesn't have to be your tag team partner. If you want to get out of the ring, just tag somebody and get out. And that, that can work to your advantage. Especially if you want to take a break and let your opponents beat the hell out of each other for a little bit while you recoup.
Absolutely. So I do think it's going to be a good match. I'll admit I don't know much about a few of the other teams, but I know the Grizzled Young Veterans were in NXT UK too. They really stole the show a lot.
They did. And, I think a lot of these NXT people from England are really going to, coming to bring it. They've been off for a little bit. They haven't been able to work, like you said. They're going to come and bring the show.
That is very true. And so, are you ready to move on, or do you want to still talk about this subject?
No, let's move on to the next matchup.
So, it's the NXT UK Championship between Walter defending against Tommaso Ciampa.
Now, this is a very, 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 very interesting matchup in my eyes. You got the powerhouse, one of the giants of WWE right now, Walter. You don't have many big men, and Walter is one of them. He's very menacing.
And he has an old-fashioned theme.
Got the old-fashioned theme. He's got an old-fashioned ring jacket. He's with Imperium. He's got his own little faction there. And he's been dominant since entering into the NXT. So, you got him now facing the veteran,
Tommaso Ciampa.
He's. I don't think we've seen a true representation of Ciampa since he's come back. We've seen a happy Ciampa. We've seen a friendly Ciampa.
We've seen an angry, psychotic Ciampa.
But we haven't seen that deadly psycho Ciampa that we saw before his injury. That he had that look in his eye.
Had a weird obsession with the NXT title, calling him Goldie.
Big Goldies and gold. You had when he was facing Gargano in some of their matches, you could see it in his eyes. He wanted blood. He hasn't had that look since coming back, in my opinion. He's been good, but he hasn't been at his top heel game. He was, at one point, in my opinion, he was the top heel in the whole thing. Better than Randy Orton, better than anybody. He was number one. When he ripped Gargano's wedding ring off and threw it into the crowd, that was a great heel moment.
That was cringe.
You could hear people in the crowd crying for Gargano. They really felt for him. It was perfect. A lot of that steam got lost, but he's still a great wrestler. He's still a former champion. This is going to be a very good physical matchup between these two. I don't know who's going to win, though. Who do you think's going to win it?
I honestly think, since it's UK and they're starting to get programming back, I do think Walter will carry the momentum and knock out Ciampa, because what really started the match to get announced is he was knocking out and brutalizing poor Drake Maverick. Who knows if he actually confiscated his marriage with the obsession with the 24/7 championship. But I do think, with the Imperium behind his back, I do think Walter will make Ciampa tap out, because he's very vicious and much grappler, and it will turn Ciampa heel in the future, I think.
Which is what we want to see. That heel Ciampa is what we've been waiting for. Again, I think that's where he does.
Because he has to look for it. All the people on the internet complain how he looks like he's older than Edge, even though he's not.
He's young, isn't he? In his
30s, mid-30s, I think.
Yeah, mid-30s. But, he's a great athlete. He's in great shape. And his heel work is some of the best. I wouldn't mind seeing him turn back his heel, become the evil Ciampa he was, and let's just, keep going with, how it was before the pandemic and before he got injured.
Maybe Walter beats Ciampa, and Ciampa attacks maybe Kyle O'Reilly the next day to cost him the match against Adam Cole.
Many, many things can happen.
Because, with NXT, usually when a big face loses in a match or a big heel loses, they tend to interfere in another match and turn.
They do. They're a small knit kind of crew, so one affects the other, and they take it out on each other. They really definitely do.
And Triple H does a very good job at making the fast face of heel turns mean something.
Oh yeah. Triple H has done a great job just making NXT in itself mean something. A lot of a lot of wrestling on the mainstream of it, Raw and SmackDown on the weekly basis. A lot of it doesn't mean too much, who wins, who loses. There's no prestige behind half of the matches. Shoot, half of the matches are basically, we're going to see basically on Mania. But NXT's a little bit different. Every match is major. Every match has a build-up to it. Every match has a story to be told. These guys want to tell their story. They want to get in the ring. They want to do their thing. They're more hungry than the other people on the main roster.
And they have a little bit more creative freedom, too.
A little bit more creative freedom, but they're also a little bit more in touch with us, the fan, the working people that aren't wrestlers. They're more apt to go on Twitter and interact with us, talk with us, get on podcasts, respond. They have more time, a little bit more time, whereas, the WWE main roster doesn't have that time, and a lot of them get starstruck. Once they get to a certain level, they can't be bothered by the little person.
That is very true, Pete. So we're going to be moving on to our main event of night one, which is the NXT Women's Championship with long-reigning champ Io Shirai defending against Raquel Gonzalez, who was the inaugural NXT Women's Tag Champs that William Regal awarded with her and Dakota Kai, who will be a manager, and they lost the same night to Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart, who are on a roll as NXT Women's Tag Champs.
I love Shotzi Blackheart. I mean, her and her tank, and she's just great. This match is going to be interesting. I think Io Shirai's reign is coming to an end.
I honestly think the main roster is trying to be evaluated with the women's division with the news with Charlotte and Becky still being out. I think Io Shirai will lose and go to the main roster. Raquel Gonzalez, they could give her a mean streak like they did with Shayna Baszler.
Exactly, and I mean, as long as WWE's main roster people have learned from their mistakes of the past and they don't treat her like another Kairi Sane or even another Asuka when she first moved up. And if they do Io Shirai the right way, she can be very dominant wherever she goes, either Raw or SmackDown. She can definitely make the division better. But if they just throw her into a tag team with another Asian female, it's just going to be the same thing all over again as it was with Kairi Sane and Asuka. There was no really need for that. I think, it's just Vince being Vince and the way he is. He doesn't seem to really know how to work the women's division too well. It's been that way for a while. You get a good division, and then you get, the other. If Raw is good, then SmackDown is terrible. And if SmackDown is striving for women, then Raw is no good. They just can't seem to get it going on both.
But I am finally happy to see someone other than the Four Horsewomen get their opportunity in Mania, who was NXT veterans Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Makes me happy to see and gives me hope for the women's division like they had a few years ago.
Exactly. A lot of these NXT women moving up like Rhea Ripley are going to bring the thunder to the main division as we start to phase out, like you said, some of the horsemen women coming out. Yes, you have Charlotte. She's sick. Unfortunately, I don't know if she was ever planned for this Mania. If she was, I don't think it was what people are thinking. I don't think it was supposed to be a main event. If anything, maybe it was just her versus Rhea Ripley.
Or they were going to, before Lacey was pregnant, they were going to go that route with Charlotte versus Lacey Evans.
Or do the Charlotte versus Lacey storyline that can coincide with, the Flair. The whole Flair thing. And that would have been fine, and I would have liked that if that was the case. But otherwise, I don't see her. She's not in the main title. She doesn't need to be. You don't need to throw her into a triple threat. I don't think it will happen, but you just don't. It just doesn't need to be.
But to stay with the...
Stay on the topic, yeah. We're a little off topic here about this match. So, yeah, I think Io Shirai's going to drop the title this time.
Me too. She's very talented. Don't get me wrong. Had a great run, but it's time for her to go to main. And you really want to create babyface woman in the NXT Women's, and no one better than Raquel Gonzalez because she can be that monster female heel like a Nia Jax, or great shape and everything, especially with Dakota Kai's been on a roll since she turned heel at War Games last year on Tegan Nox.
So that's what I'm thinking. You get that going. Let's open up, every time a new champion is moved on to the main roster, it gives a lot of opportunity for all the other women to shine in the division, and that's what will happen here. A lot of people will step up to the new champion. We'll see a lot more matches. She has a different style than Io Shirai, so she'll be able to work different matches than that.
Absolutely, and if she gets a long reign, and hopefully they go back to Full Sail with a lot of fans for NXT, it will make whoever the babyface woman is for NXT from maybe a prospect from the Performance Center will really give a huge rub in the future, but give her a long reign. I want to see Gonzalez run with it. Maybe she'll turn on Dakota Kai and they'll have a great feud.
Could go many ways. I think she will have a good run. I mean, almost anybody. I can't say that there hasn't been anybody that hasn't had a decent length run with the NXT Women's title in the last few years. Shayna dominated it. After that, you had others, but they were lengthy reigns. It wasn't just overnight. It wasn't 1 week or 2 weeks. she could at least hold it on her own, though, for a year and really open that division up.
Absolutely. So, let's move on. Do you want to make a few announcements for our future podcast?
Yeah, let's kind of talk about a little bit. You know, we're gonna do night 2 in a separate podcast. So let's kind of just discuss what we're doing here at VSW, what we got going on. You know, as you know, we got the NXT takeovers. We're covering that this week. You know, we got Thursday night. You know, the return of NCW. You know. That's going to be something pretty cool. There's, season opener.
And the heavy underrated promotion. Yeah, maybe more kiddies than like a Beyond a Limitless, but that's where talent really learns to thrive before they get to the big stage.
And to be honest, who knows how it's going to be, because it's going to be taped. It's called Behind Closed Doors. It might be a little bit more mature than you think. I've heard only great things out of the talents. I've seen their tweets. I read what they wrote about what they did this week, and you got them coming back Thursday night. We have live wrestling coming back at Beyond in Worcester. We'll be covering that later that night. You're also going to have the Lab coming this spring.
That's going to be awesome.
We'll be covering that. And to make things even better for wrestling fans, we're going to be covering the Rhodes Factory.
And the Nightmare Factory.
Yeah, that's the Nightmare Rhodes Factory. That's what I mean. So, you got that promotion as well that could really, take off. Are they going to be, taking people to AEW from there? Or will those people end up going everywhere?
And we'll cover the future Dynamites after Mania Week. But what I really am excited for is our friend Michael Panchu and our good friend Brian Francione will take my place to cover one of the nights of WrestleMania next week, to give his opportunity to shine in front of his casual fans and everything.
That's right. I always like bringing people into this. Last night we had Mikey Starks on this show. We're going to get, indie wrestlers coming on the show. I'm getting some, messages and phone calls coming in about it. I like to bring friends in, too. People that aren't used to, the limelight of talking about wrestling, or maybe be shy on the mic. Let's get them in here. Let's get them talking.
Give us a call.
I know Brian. I know Panchu. They're good people. We had Panchu a couple weeks ago talking about the business side of WWE.
And we're going to have him be our moderator, read either the Brian or Disabled's questions or Versace's questions. We're going to answer whatever he has for us. He'll preview the match card like I did tonight to Versace.
We're going to be also taking questions and answering them live, through Twitter. And honestly, if people want to call in and kind of talk a little with us, we're able to do that too now.
Let's talk about what separate from you'll get night 1 and night 2 WrestleMania podcasts, and separate editions will detail every match. We have been paying attention. We won't disappoint you. It's our flagship event too. And in separate podcasts, you guys can call in, send us a message right on Twitter. You can talk about the past Mania with guys like Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker.
You can come way back with me, Versace Stone. We can talk WrestleMania 2, with King Kong Bundy in a steel cage. Whatever you want to do, we'll be here to talk about it.
We can talk about the matches that almost happened at Mania too, that you wish happened.
But what about the matches that should have happened? Like, we all know WrestleMania 8, it should have been Hogan versus Flair. We should have saw champion versus champion.
We should have saw Hogan versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 19.
That should have been happening too. So there's much to talk about with WrestleMania. We have it all.
In other words, when it comes to the granddaddy of them all, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Never, never, never. And we always are happy to answer them here at the VSW. We definitely are. But if you've been listening to this, we've been talking about night 1 of NXT's takeover coming this Wednesday.
NXT.
And if you continue to follow us, you'll be able to listen to night 2 of the preview that will be taking place Thursday night And that's going to be a very special night, I feel, for NXT, for WWE, for wrestling, for the world. But you'll hear all about that in our next podcast.
Very true. Disable Foul signing off.
Versace's daughter out.